Hey everybody, welcome to the NC State Insider Podcast. I am your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, joined today once again by my good friend and assistant beat writer here, Daniel Rios, back to talk about some Wolfpack football. Very special episode planned for you guys today, a double film breakdown. We know you guys love to hear about NC State's film and the upcoming opponent. So we're going to give it to you today in double dose. How about that? Dan, how are we doing today?
We are doing excellence. We have NC State 3-0. Season's going along, everything's happening, getting those fall vibes slowly setting in, at least here on the West Coast. I know it may feel a little bit different over there on the East, but yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
We do actually have seasons here, so I would say
Yeah.
it's actually starting to feel more like fall here than it probably is in on the West Coast. But I
It
appreciate I
it
appreciate the
rained today.
spirit.
It rained today here, so that was a little different. That
Okay,
was a
okay.
little interesting.
I heard there's like some hurricane action happening on the West Coast, so
I'm just gonna sit here and we'll figure it out as it happens. Got too much film to watch. Who looks at the weather?
that's yeah, a rainy day is like ideal because
Yeah,
you get an excuse to watch more film. Like
exactly.
there's no need to go out, right?
Exactly.
The best. It's the best. All right, well, let's dive in. Before we kind of get to Duke and what you've seen from them on tape, I figured just since I haven't had you here to talk about that game last Thursday, we just wrap a bow on that win. I'll ask you some questions about things that you've seen now that you've been able to watch that game, and then also, all three NC State games on the All 22. Um, so let's do that.
Okay.
Let's start with the first half defense. It's been an issue in this Virginia game and in this Wake Forest game. They've come out a little sluggish. Virginia game obviously was that really hot day, and they ran the ball really well. And then NC State really buttoned up in the second half. The Wake Forest game, my takeaway was that they were caught off guard a little bit by the passing offense of Wake Forest, and then they really buttoned things up in the second half. Wake Forest didn't score. So what did you see in terms of second half adjustments from the defense in those games and how they're sort of figuring this out in DJ Elliott's scheme?
I think it is just playing tighter, and I know it may be the boring answer of like I don't think they really, at least in my opinion, they really changed too much up, but I think it legit is just making those tackles, shedding those blocks. It's just the simple things. Like you watch back that first half of Virginia and Caden Fordham has, Jamari Taylor, like, and he meets him in the hole perfectly, like twice. And he just breaks a tackle and breaks it up for 60 yards on both of those touchdowns. And then again, Wake Forest, Brody Barnhart, I don't know, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
He just got beat. It was just a simple, he was where he was supposed to be. The guy just ran right by him. So it's just those little things necessarily. I think you just see DJ Elliott in the second half kind of get a little bit more aggressive. He doesn't kind of let those little dink and dunks kind of happen in those RPOs and in, passing attacks, which can, set teams to be in those third and tens, third and longs, and you're able to get those three and outs that we've been able to see this team do. But it's very weird. I wrote an article about it today. The first and second half stats are just so wildly different for this
Yeah,
defense.
I mean, even for the offense, they definitely have different splits, which is interesting. Just the way that they play, it's almost like two different teams.
Mhm.
I know part of that was just that weird game against ECU in the first game
Yeah.
of the season was like a total reverse of what happened in the second and third game. But that's certainly interesting because that's sort of what Dave Doran's been saying is
Yeah.
it's not really an adjustment thing. It's just that they aren't playing to their standard in the first half of games, and so I think that probably gives Wolfpack fans some relief that that's not just coach speak. That's actually something you can see in these games.
No, yeah,
So
it's oh sorry,
no,
just
no, go ahead.
it's evident and I know people probably want like an in-depth like oh they're they're playing more single high and more
It's
two
not
high
al-
stuff. Like
it's
it's
not
not all
always that
that. It's not
complicated.
always that. It's
Yeah.
legit just making tackles and getting off your block sometimes. And that's
Right.
what it is.
Right. And I think a lot of the guys that we've heard from out here in terms of the players have been pretty straight up about it and have said it's really just effort and intensity in the second half. And I again, sometimes the simplest thing is the easiest solution. So
Yeah.
we'll see if that trend continues. I don't know if that's just how they're going to be this year. They're just not a team that's going to be capable of playing 4 quarters.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's just it's been wild to watch. I, kind of following up on the defense, you already kind of brought up the linebacker play a little bit, but Sean Brown and Fordham are both off to really good starts tackling statistically, but when you watch the games, I mean, Sean Brown's leading the ACC in tackles, but when you watch the games, they kind of have struggled at points. What how have their weaknesses sort of been corrected in these second halves? And then also, what do they need to do to be more consistent in terms of what you've seen?
I think for sure, at least, Caden and Sean, they both know how to really fill the run effectively. I think it's just, you know, sometimes they overshoot an angle, sometimes they, don't get off a block correctly. But for sure, both of those guys know like what they're doing in the run game. It's just the pass game that kind of, it gets a little bit exposed when you're running, those cover threes, those cover twos, like those hook curl zones that they're responsible for. Sometimes they don't get enough depth, sometimes they get too much depth. It's just kind of it's all just about feel essentially when you're kind of playing zone and kind of understanding what the offense is trying to do. I just think, the past 2 weeks it's just feeling out the other team a little bit. Like Wake Forest, you mentioned, they kind of jumped out to that early lead. That passing attack was on fire. But once the team kind of just, settled in, realized what was really coming at them, like they were able to kind of adjust to it. But I mean, if you just look at, like the coverage numbers, Sean Brown, I think, is leading the team in giving up yardage. Um,
And
and
he
Fordham,
he's struggled against the run a little bit, but then he turns it around in the second half.
yeah,
So his stats are kind of wonky in that way. It's
yeah.
just weird to watch them play because they again, it's like Jekyll and Hyde between the first and second half. It's just two different players, or I guess four different players when you think about it that way.
Yeah, and it's just like they're not doing anything like crazily different, which is just
No.
it's just so weird like seeing it. It's just I don't
Yeah.
know what happens at halftime
It's
or
it's it's
you know.
just it's an execution thing, which I guess they just have to figure out a way to come into these games a little more juiced. And we'll talk about an issue that could be recurring in this Duke game because I put my meteorologist hat on, but we'll do that in the game day preview for you guys in the next episode. Last question about the defense before we kind of talk about some guys that have stood out to you on the tape. How would you define the scheme through 3 games? Obviously, we've heard a lot about multiple, multiple, multiple. What can you give us like the 3 bullet points for the people that are watching at home that are wanting to dig a little bit deeper into this team, but
Yeah.
not quite like they're not going to sit down and watch the all 22 like you do.
Yeah, first bullet point is you don't know who's coming. Like it's every single down. It could be a linebacker, it could be a nickel, it could be something just like the versatility of Kian Sloan and Kenny Soares is really like valuable to this team because they both can drop back and play a flat, typically towards the boundary side. So, when you're on that closer side of the field where the sideline is, that's typically where on C State will drop Sloan or Hart or Soares and then they'll blitz the field side linebacker. They've done that a bunch of times. That's like one of their biggest staples. They're not the biggest man team. They're a lot more zone, a lot more, kind of dropping back. I haven't really seen them really, man up too many times. So you're not really getting um Marshall or Vic lined up pressing guys. And I think with when you play a multiple st scheme that has a bunch of sim pressures, it's kind of hard to play man. So I think, you see a lot of dropping back and not really, that's why you see so many underneath routes get completed because they're just, let them catch the ball 2 yards on the field and just rally and tackle. That's a lot of what this team has been. And then I just think, what's really stood out to me is defensive tackle play a lot. I think this is especially Brandon Cleveland. He doesn't light up I know this isn't like a staple of defense, but I just think just something I wanted to mention is just Cleveland has had a really good, season in my opinion. He doesn't have many tackles and he doesn't have many, stats that'll, you know, get you so excited. But I mean, that's that's how those tackles are, man.
Charlie Wiles said it best. He's not making plays that are gonna get. I forget how he worded it exactly, but he's like he's not making plays that you're gonna see on the television screen, but he has such an effect on the team,
Yeah,
uh, especially against the run. So. I
yeah,
hear you, and that was a great definition of kind of what this defense is because I think a lot of people, even on the beat, it's just like we just hear multiple, multiple, multiple. It's just like the main thing that they say. So it's nice to have sort of a
yeah.
better feel for what it actually means. Um, Standout offensive player, standout defensive player when you're watching the all 22 can be from either of these past two games.
For NC State. Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
NC State. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's okay.
It's all good. It's
Um,
all good.
for the offense, it has to be Smothers, and I know that may be the boring answer because of his stats,
Not really.
but
He's been really, really good.
I mean, like this, and not to dog on the offensive line and give him a subtle shot, but like there's not many running lanes open half the time. And the fact that this man is able to, still finish with the 240-yard games and just look so dominant is just really impressive. He has 380 yards on the season, 286 of that is after contact. Like he makes people miss. I think he's like I want to say top five in the country in forced missed tackles. So it's serious. He's just so fun to watch because it's just like I've watched him sometimes and I just don't even know how he saw like what he did and like just the hole to kind of bounce out of. And yeah, he's been just incredible to watch. And I wrote an article about him um a couple of days ago, but Kenny Soares on defense has really impressed me. He just has such a motor on the defensive end, and he doesn't play, every single down because he's in part of that sub package, but he just has such a good feel for the game. Like one down he's rushing the passer, the next he's playing in the slot, the next he's off ball linebacker. Like yeah, he's been all over the field, and that's I think been one of the more underrated acquisitions from the transfer portal
Yeah. Yeah.
class.
I agree. He's been really, really good to start the season when he gets action. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him against Duke with Harsh suspended for the first half. But let's talk about the Blue Devils. Let's dive into these guys now that we're sort of caught up on what we've missed talking about NC State. Um, it kind of the thing that's jumped out, at least on the stats, I've watched highlights, but I haven't watched any full games. But they obviously have this really talented defensive line and Vincent Anthony Jr. is off to this incredible start with the 5 sacks already. But he wasn't really the guy who a lot of teams would have expected to get off to a start like that was Wesley Williams, and he hasn't even gotten to the quarterback yet. So what's kind of going on with this pass rush in terms of just the one guy being able to create pressure, even though this was a group that was expected to be pretty dynamic across the board?
Yeah, and in terms of the pressure, Vincent Anthony has 8 total pressures on the year, but Wesley's right there at 7,
Yeah.
and he has 4 quarterback hits. He's been able to get there. He just doesn't have the same win percentage as Vincent, so he just ha I mean, you still see it. Like he makes plays. He just hasn't been able to finish. And I think I've been saying that about Sebastian Harsh as well. Like he'll pop up a bunch. It's just he won't get, that ever so, elusive sack that, people will come back and look at, be like, oh, what a good game and things like that.
He had
But
one. Unfortunately, he lowered the crown of his helmet and got ejected.
yeah, that's, just a little unlucky there. But for at least for Anthony, he is real speed. Like he's going to be the best test for this offensive line. Him and Wesley, they both have real speed, especially Vincent off the edge. The amount, like, if you have speed to power as an edge rusher, like you just instantly can just win so many reps, and that's exactly what he has. So I'm interested to see how Peak and Anderson will be able to handle him. But yeah, this defensive line, um, they don't. In terms of at least first and second down, they don't throw anything too exotic at the offensive line, or they don't blitz as heavy or anything like that. But third down, you'll get the double mug and the single mug looks, and that's where it'll kind of get a little crazy. So, um, yeah, I think Wesley hasn't had the sack numbers, but still, he's popping up on the tape.
Okay. Okay. Um, Obviously their defensive line is the real deal, but the face of this Blue Devil defense is Chandler Rivers, the defensive back. This is
Yes.
a kid who, even if you don't watch Duke, you've probably heard about. He was a preseason All-American, and it's just a phenomenal corner. What have you seen from the tape on him so far?
He is just the way he's able just to kind of understand routes from that outside corner position is just so like it's just special, and his ability to break on balls and get aggressive at the point of attack on catches, like
Really, really
he
physical, even though
he's physical.
not
Yeah,
a he's not a big guy though.
and that's what's like crazy to me is he's only like 5'10", I think like 180, but
Yeah,
he plays like he's 6'1", like 195. Like
right,
he
right.
he like he is aggressive. He will, contest every catch. He's only been targeted 5 times this year, which, go figure. I mean, he's only allowed 3 receptions, for 44 yards, and it's just um I he was one of the guys that I had on, my list of just kind of keeping track of him before this draft, and he's kind of, solidified my assumptions of, that day two, maybe early day three pick, and he's looking like, the real deal, and I'm excited to see, how this Wolfpack receiving core will be able to come in and you know, play against them and things like that. But I mean, he hasn't really been. Duke does run a little bit more man than I think North Carolina has seen, so I'm kind of interested to see how that'll play out.
North Carolina,
Oh, State, North Carolina State. Oh my God.
NC State.
Yeah, yeah. I
Don't
mean,
don't use the North Carolina term.
I'm so sorry.
Belichick learned his lesson on directional school usage this week
Uh,
with the Central Florida comment. They're going crazy down there.
yeah.
Um, Duke. What else do I got for you? Darian Mensah is the highest paid quarterback in college football. Why?
So he,
And
when
I don't
I
mean
when I
that,
w-
just to clarify for the listeners, I don't mean that in like a sarcastic way. I mean that I'm trying to get Dan to tell us why he earned this deal because he's very good.
So he's number three in the nation in passing yards, and what this Duke offense does really well is they're a really big conditioning team. So they're a heavy outside zone team. If you guys are familiar with like, the 49ers, for example, who run a bunch of outside zone, then you run play action off of that, little boots. It's exactly what this offense is. They're going to pound the rock on you, and then in the third and fourth quarter, they're just going to let Mensa, throw the rock. And that's exactly what they try to do against Illinois. It's just the turnover bug again has kind of really struck Duke early on in the season, which is why they've, dropped these 2 games. But Mensa outside of the pocket and when he's on the move, he is a very accurate and confident quarterback. When they get him on these little half rollouts, these little naked boots, like he's delivering strikes down the field. His passer rating and intermediate throws of 10 to 19 yards is, it's all at least above 101 for the NFL. So he's been able to find, success throwing intermediate. The thing that not worries me, but when I'm watching him and I would expect it to be a little bit better is when he's in the pocket, he's actually not as um efficient as I would hope. There's a lot of staring down receivers. There's a lot of uncertainties. I wrote about it a little bit of this week on the website where there's the play where he had a deep out wide open on this cover two type of coverage. But he just decided just to stare down his inbreaker, and then he just kind of rolled out, panicked a little bit, and just checked it down, which it wasn't, a bad check down or anything. It's just his eyes get a little too stagnant, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Stagnant, doesn't scan the field well when he's in the pocket, and then he tends to force the ball. Like when it's a close game, he'll force the ball into situations where you're just like what are you doing, dude? Like let's be a little bit more safe. Um and anticipating. I think if we're just looking at CJ Bailey and Darian Mensah right now just as quarterbacks, I think CJ Bailey is a better processor and, you know, anticipator in the pocket at least. And that's one of the things that's really impressed me with CJ Bailey around this year. But I can see why Duke went out and paid all this money to get Mensa. He has the arm. He has the ability to make these throws on the run. It's a little too worrying when he's standing in the pocket, which is something that, NC State should be ready for.
Yeah. And I think one thing that Dorn's talked about already is they sort of find ways to get him out of the pocket and he's been pretty good when he's off schedule. What are some of the ways that they're able to sort of create those looks for him? Because you said, the processing isn't elite when he's in the pocket. So he seems to be sometimes more comfortable off schedule. So how are they able to kind of get those kinds of looks for him in the offense?
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's just establishing the run. You establish the run, and then you're able to do these play action looks. And it's a lot of like just kind of just trusting him because there's a lot of times where they leave the backside edge unblocked, and it's just up to Mensa to kind of figure it out and either check it down or throw it down deep. I think where they also trust him a lot is in the 2 minute situation against Illinois. Illinois is playing a bunch of single high coverage, and it's just Mensa understood that, and he took shots down the field because he has that one-on-one coverage. He was able to look off the safety and come back to his go route on the left side of the field. It's just trust within the coaching staff to for him to look at the field, understand what he's given, and for him to make a decision. So, you know, they put the ball in his hands, and I think that's just the biggest thing is put the ball in his hands and let him figure it out. And if it's a play call to get him outside the pocket, he'll thrive. And they still trust him to sit down in the pocket and let, one of those deeper to intermediate, concepts, develop.
All right, well, we got to do the same thing we did for NC State. You can totally use one of the guys that you've already talked about, but if there's another guy, please feel free to share. But who is the offensive player that stuck out to you most on the tape and the defensive player that stuck out to you most on the tape?
For NC State or Duke?
Duke.
Duke. Um, Offensively, I'd have to say the receiver Cooper Barkhart.
Bar,
The
oh,
tra
Barcate, I think. Yeah.
Barkhart. No, it's Barcate. Sorry, I thought there was an R. I'm silly. Um, the transfer from Harvard, and he
I
leads a
get I
team.
get why coaches just use numbers. It's it's
Yeah,
it's way easier to keep track of.
it's yeah. The yeah, it's I don't know how to pronounce. I'm terrible at pronunciation. If you couldn't tell already. Um, Yeah, the transfer connection that him and Mensa have are pretty nice, pretty special.
He's a
Um,
gentleman of Harvard.
he is a gentleman of Harvard. He very smart receiver. I just like
Really?
okay, unironically, yes, he's just very smart. Oh God, that's just go figure.
Harvard, the Harvard and Duke wide receiver is a smart kid, really?
Oh my God, bro. Yeah, man. Hey, man. Just sometimes, just whatever. Um, but leads the team with 272 yards on the season. Could kind of play everywhere. He'll play in the slot. He'll play out wide, but he's mostly their out wide guy. Leads the team in yards after the catch with 118. Surprisingly elusive.
He's pretty, yeah, I was gonna say for his size, he's pretty he gets open a lot. I mean, just based off of his speed, like it's just
Yeah.
you know who he kind of reminds me of, and this you can slap me if I'm totally off here. He gives me some Jake Bobo vibes.
Okay.
You see it?
Okay. Jake Bobo. Yeah.
Like
I I won't slap you for
bigger
that.
wide receiver who moves between the slot and the outside, catches passes over the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. S- I'll give you a pat on the back for that one.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, he's been the one who's impressed me offensively for Duke. And then defensively, it has to be Chandler Rivers. I think maybe it was just preseason for me, but coming into the season, I had, higher expectations for him, and he's kind of proved me right. We already talked about him a little bit, but just such a physical corner for his size and just his ability to kind of sit in zones and like read coverage or read route concepts is just really special. And excited to see what happens on, Saturday with him and this NC State receiving core.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was our two-part NC State slash Duke film review for you guys. We'll have our game day preview, always comes out the day of the game. So that'll come out for you tomorrow. We'll do our usual routine stat predictions, points of emphasis, and predictions for what's gonna be the flow of the game, our worst case scenario for NC State, our official score prediction, and of course our bold predictions for the afternoon. Um, Thanks for tuning in for the podcast. Dan, anything you want to say to the people?
Just enjoy the game, it's potential to be 4-0 this week.
Yeah, yeah. Very,
Potential.
very, very big game for the Wolfpack. If you want more coverage from both Daniel and myself, you can follow our personal X accounts. I am at Senate Tucker and Daniel is at Daniel underscore Rio 72. You can also follow the website's X account at Wolfpack on SI. And you can find more episodes of the NC State Insider podcast on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. That's all we got, folks. We will see you on game day. Deuces.